Michel Martinelli, Head of Acquisition and Preservation at RSI, sorry for my pronunciation, sorry. The name of the title is Getting a Grip on Your Collection, Seamlessly Connecting RSI Archivis, Analogue and Digital Preservation under OAIS umbrella. Thank you so much. Sorry for my pronunciation, sorry.
Should you mind? So, good afternoon. I'm very pleased to be here presenting this topic, which is very hot at RSI, because we are really getting a grip on our collection. And while seamlessly connecting RSI Archivis Analogue and digital preservation under an OAIS umbrella. And while doing this presentation, I will show you how and why we are doing it. So connecting the digital preservation with our physical archives. But first of all, a bit of context, just to understand why we are doing it. RSI is phasing out the storage facilities, the external and partially the internal one, which means our audiovisual carriers will have no more place inside the headquarters. We will have no more storage places to store them. And I'm talking about 500,000 audiovisual carriers. So we had to think how to handle all this quantity of carriers. They are audio and video carriers, mainly audio right now. So how did we respond to that? This request directly from our institution saying, okay, from 2027, you will have no more place for your carriers. So we developed two projects. The DigiPress project, which aims to reinforce the digital preservation procedures and infrastructure. So this is the one point, so talking about the digital preservation. On the other side, a sampling project, a controlled disposal of non-life-based audiovisual media, which means all the carrier, in other words. This is why we are addressing our physical archives and digital preservation model. We need to find a solution, a destination. It might be a disposal, it might be a donation, depends on other institutions as well, or just in the end, if we don't have any choices, we'll have to carry on and destroy them. The DigiPress project stems from the Swiss Radio and Television Ordinance, Article 33, Paragraph 3. So in reality, all the article is based on the archives. And this paragraph 3 states, in carrying out its task in terms of paragraph 1 and 2, so permanent conservation and accessibility to the public of the archives, ASRG, SSR, shall work with special institutions for audiovisual heritage in order to ensure that the archiving is carried out and access is guaranteed according to recognized professional standards. And these are the two key words that helped us just really planning the DigiPress. So we had to refer to some standards internationally recognized. So, and we were just supported by the law in this case. So it's just quite a strong support to have. So the scope of the DigiPress, it aims to develop plans to enhance digital preservation procedures and infrastructure, where needed, of course, in order to comply with the international professional standards, as stated by the law, and comply with the digital preservation conditions in order to decommission the original physical support. So we have both projects to be green-lighted before going to the decommissioning or donation or disposal. So the first steps we took for this project was to make a pre-audit on RSI infrastructure and procedure, because we needed to assess the current situation of our digital preservation, because it was not directly in our hands. We have other departments involved in this project. They were then called in and asked for help, of course. We based our pre-audit on the scoremodel.org, which is composed by 56 assessment criteria based on OAIS. So the results were 16 criteria were insufficiently conforming to ORTV, Article 33, paragraph 3, as I read before. 18 criteria were insufficiently met to proceed with the disposal of the original carrier. 22 criteria were satisfied. So we had some criteria to improve. This was clear for us. Now, we gained an understanding of the current situation. The next question was, how shall we move forward to improve the situation? So we hired a specialized external consultant who has deep knowledge in OAIS and ISO 16363, which could help us in making an in-depth analysis of 30 criteria. If you add up the other criteria, they come to 34 because 4 of them are to be handled at a higher institutional level. So not directly from RSI, but at the federal level, confederational level. So it's like an exit strategy in case RSI doesn't exist anymore, for example. Or are the archives sufficiently financed? Or such questions that do not touch directly, of course they do, but not directly the digital preservation. The method they used was interviews, workshops, questionnaire, and gathering documentation. So the project is still ongoing. So they did the interviews, the questionnaire, they gathered some documentation, like cybersecurity, SLA agreement with the archives, for example, between archives and the cybersecurity, what kind of services they will give us. The next steps are coming. They are just writing down, just making some proposal to be then discussed internally by RSI Archivi, so between us, so to say. They will come back probably with some workshops, because the conservation plan and the collection plan have to be done together. So they will be accepted by all departments and, of course, the members of the archives, which is an important part. So after the in-depth analysis, their conclusion was that 14 criteria were deemed critical to be improved before proceeding with the decommissioning of the physical carriers. Here I brought just 2 examples of these 14 critical points. Is there in place an effective backup strategy, so a 3-tier storage? And every action on every digital object is logged. This is another point to be treated. 16 criteria were deemed as non-critical for decommissioning, but need to be improved to comply with ISO 16363 if we want to point to that direction then in the future. So we are working on all these points. First of all, the points that are critical to pursue the decommissioning. Until 2027, we have to take this decision or to find other solutions anyway. But before deciding, we need these criteria to be fixed, improved, or where possible, improved. It will depend on the improvements plan that we'll have under scrutiny. Who was involved? Well, RSI Archivi, the Media Technology Department, Systems and Services Department, and the Legal Department as well, because there were a couple of criteria touching rights, how they would be handled, for example, when we're not only for our own production, but, for example, for production of third parties. This was as well a question that was posed to our legal department. So what will we have in the end? So what will RSI achieve? A closer alignment with the OAIS and ISO 16363 in observance of the Swiss law, which is very, very, very important for us. Preservation and collection plan, which we don't have for now. A digital preservation enhancements plan to proceed decommissioning. Prompt decision on improvement plans that can be implemented at once. So the ones that can take just a little time, they are not too costly, so to say. And the ability to take a more carefully weighted decommissioning decision, just on the basis that we know what to do, what can we do, when can we start with decommissioning, if. And we will come back then to the other department, which is responsible for the buildings and safety and all these kind of things, and talking back to them and explaining why we want to proceed or we can proceed with a part of them or just all of them, so explaining the reason why. So, the second project was the sampling project. It was implemented due to the absence of a complete documentation on the results of the digitization processes. No documentation of the quality control processes or outcomes are present, not fully. And I'm talking more about the audio carrier, not much more the video carrier. They were digitized in another way. So the aim of the project is to provide tangible data on the outcomes of the digitization processes for physical archive carriers stored at the external and internal facilities as a final step to accept the digital version as a new archive master, because it's the only way that we can do this. And in the background, you can see a picture of a part of the audio archives stored outside. It's just, yeah, they're all audio carriers, these ones. They're in the thousands. I'm talking about the container. So what is out of scope means we are not going to sample is RSI Archivi's films collection. We are going to store it for further digitization, probably. So we already found a place in the headquarters, so it's safe. And depending on the results of the sampling project, a redigitization of carriers that were not conform to what we established as a threshold just to be reached to be conform. So now, how was the project designed? So how did we think? Did we think how to do it? So to structure it, we used a stratified sampling methodology with mixed allocation of samples, which sounds very complicated, but it's not. And this is to ensure overall representativeness of the total population, because of course we cannot analyze all of them. This 500,000 would take years. So I made myself a calculation very quickly and then estimated something like 15 years of work with the people that I have right now. Now we could use another 3 guys. We could hire them just for this project to work for us, and we will finish it probably in 7-8 months. The sampling. And we wanted to ensure a reliability of analysis at the individual stratum level. So they've been stratified all of the quantity of the samples, which means 5% of the total of 500,000, which is more or less 20,000 more. And we subdivided it in 2 parts. A core part with guaranteed minimum coverage across all strata of 5%. This is the first step that we did. If this first 5% were conform, we didn't go further. Otherwise, we would need to expand our sampling of another 2%, always calculated on the total. So, and the 2 percentages, I got them from statistically relevant. 5% is quite an high percentage to check, to control, to sample. And 2% is quite more than enough just to confirm what you find out. So, which means even if we would add another 5%, it would change that much on the margin of error that I have. So I would reduce it, but we stay between some percentage like 1–2%, just fluctuating between them, but no more. So the quantity that doesn't make, the more the quantity doesn't mean that is, the better it will be. So that's the idea behind the statistics. So now, how did we define the strata? So carriers are defined by code. Carriers type and quantity. For example, we had the code A, type is audio, quantity 10,000. So we have different codes, like maybe 20 codes for audio and video carriers, which is quite useful because we could just make a first division between them. And once we made that, we stratified them. So for example, on 10,000 quantity, I made 10 strata. of each strata, we analyzed 5% of each strata, and the samples were randomized, which means the distribution is all along the strata. So not concentrated at the beginning, in the middle, or just in the end. That would cause some risky perception of the conformity, because it might be that another group which is at the beginning might not have been seen, and it stays then there, because, yeah. Okay. So this is the roadmap in a nutshell. So we have the sampling project and the DigiPress project. We are just running together. They started in April this year. We will close them between 2026 for the DigiPress project and 2027, the sampling project. If everything is successful or is green-lighted, then we go to the decommissioning phase between 2027 and 2028, which means a disposal or donation. So we are looking in both directions. So not only disposal as a solution, but even talking with some other institution about possible donation. But the quantity are very huge. That's the problem. And we would like to then to point towards an ISO certification beyond 2028. It depends on the improvement plans. It depends on how much we have to change maybe to satisfy these criteria that we, right now, the consultant was telling us that we might reach satisfaction between 80 and 85% of compatibility with an ISO. In this case, probably we're talking about the 16363, but no more than that, because there are some points that are not matchable with an archive like ours inside the broadcaster. That's it. That's the challenge. That's the challenge. I would like to mention another project that we are starting, and is related to the DigiPress project, and it is the acquisition of web-only and social media content. We would like to start in July, just with the project plan, just thinking about how much departments are involved, because there are some departments specialized in workflows, there are some in media, like media technology, or just where we just have a department specialized just in workflows. So we have to move in different ways. And the key objective would be automating essence and metadata acquisition. So method is archiving by design directly. So if possible, if doable, of course, because it's not that easy. A definition of accepted video formats from the outset, because going these products on the social media and web only, they're not accepted by our MAM, which means we are accepting MXF, and they're using other format. But where do they store the things, the products, all this social media content? Probably on hard disk, which is not good. The project will take into account the improvement plans resulting from the DigiPress project. In this way, we would follow the recommendation in an OAIS consistent way. So our guiding principle will be what we discovered with the DigiPress project. And what we will discover in the improvement plans will be, in a way, they've been discussed already through interviews, workshops, and questionnaire with the other departments maybe already involved in this. So except for one, but the other, like media technology, system services, the legal department, they are already pointing to that direction. So, well, it will take a long time anyway. So it's not to accomplish this. Now, some final thoughts on these two projects. Analog and digital preservation are not separate words, as we have shown here in these two projects. So, in a way, we are pushed to dispose of our carriers. That's why we have these two projects running. So they blend into each other, because if one is successful, the other is successful, should be successful, but both of them should be successful, green-lighted to allow the decommissioning. Just one of them is not successful, we would stop and try to see what's wrong, what we should improve, and so on. We have arrived at RSI at a pivotal moment. The digital takes over the legitimacy of the analog, because we wouldn't have any more physical carrier. So only the digital twins versions will be available. OAIS and ISO 16363 were never written with audiovisual broadcast archives in mind. And this was confirmed by our specialized consultant telling, yes, they don't match completely. And so the norms have to adapt to us, or should we adapt to the norms? Or should we wait until there is some variation, because many more archives like ours are going to that, following this direction. So we are lucky that in Switzerland there is the law telling us that you have to structure your archives and your digital preservation following international standards. So I guess there is no other way. Auditing your digital preservation practices is an act of self-exposure. Yeah, I must say, when we did the pre-audit, well, you saw the numbers, the criteria that were satisfied, only 22 above 56. So many times we didn't know if the procedure were present. Maybe they were present, but in another department, or they were just not present, but all things were running anyway, because otherwise it wouldn't function. So it was a moment of truth, okay. But it's very interesting to see that we can improve. We will see then, probably towards November this year. We will proceed and see what really we have to improve on that level. The preservation team is the main actor, yes, it's my team, but the involvement should go way beyond. Departments involved are much more than RSI Archivi. We have media technology, system and services, and the legal department, and probably on the last one, the acquisition of social media content will involve another one. So 5, 6 departments of production, of workflow, structuring, and so on. So if you have any questions.
Just one clarification from one of the first slides, early slides. There was a mention that digital objects have to be published.
Just imagine, yeah.
So did I read that correctly?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I didn't read it. Yeah, that's not my fault, but yeah, it's correct. Yeah. No.
And how are you going to approach that?
Well, yeah, that's one of the points that we will have to decide if this is possible in a legal way, of course, because that should mean all our archives are published. So, don't think so, no. So that's why, should we adapt to the norm, or the norm should adapt to us? Because we wouldn't do that, because we have so many assets that are not, that can be published because they're not really programs. There just might be some interviews, raw interviews, and pieces of some programs, so, and all of that. So we will never comply with the ISO certification in this way, you know? So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the contribution. Is there a reason why you have to stick? Is there a legal reason why you have to stick to these standards, or why you can't look into audiovisual standards?
We just identified them by reading the law. So these two were the first one that came to our mind. So if there are any other, why not? We could think about it, but these are the most obvious for us, for now.
So you said you had to dispose of carriers either by destruction or maybe by donation. Yeah. So can you do that also legally?
Yes, we can do that. For example, for the audio carriers, we have an institution called Fonoteca Nazionale. Just have their main job is to keep the physical carriers as well as the digital one, the digital version of them. So, but they have to preserve, until they can, I guess, the physical version of them, of course. So for the audio carriers. For the video, the beta cassette, we don't have any reference right now. And probably, I guess, they will be destroyed.
Okay, thank you.
It's okay? Okay, thank you so much. Grazie mille.